Today is Thursday, March 2nd, 2023. I am Jeanette Pincus, and I have the honor of interviewing today Carol Aaron. First, Carol, I'd like for you to share what led you to the leadership position that you had.
Well, it all began when I took my first trip to Israel, and that was in 1994. And I really enjoyed the mission and got to know what everything was going on, and made new friends, some old friends, and got involved. I was asked by Yannette Hogue to join the board. And I thought, the board, what is that? And so she told me. So I joined the board. And at that time, my children didn't need me that much anymore. They had their own cars. I didn't have to go pick up anybody. So I started volunteering as a board chair, or not a board chair, but as a board member. And then they were looking for someone to follow Larry Schomburg. During that time, right before that, I think Don Schaefer was a chair, Steve Wallman was a chair, Jimmy Hogue was a chair, Andrea Weinstein was a chair, and Larry Schomburg. And so Larry kept hawking me. He said, Carol, will you do it? I said, what do you want me for? I mean, I don't do financing. I don't do policy. I said, I've got 5 kids. The only thing I can give you is people. I can bridge the generations, which most people can't. So he kept saying, okay, well, ask Stevie. And I kept asking Stevie. And by then I was already involved in a lot of other meetings and boards. And so he said, okay. So I said, okay. And it was the first time I'd ever been a chair of anything. And luckily, I loved working with Gary Weinstein, who was the CEO president. And it made it a happy time to be here. I just mentioned to you that to me it was BBYO on steroids for adults. And I loved my BBYO days. There was nothing better for Jewish children growing up here in Dallas, Texas. So being 4th generation Dallasite, it really meant something. So I took it on, and they knew that I had certain skills and that I didn't have certain skills, but they have people in place who do those good skills to be part of the team. So it worked.
Thank you. What was the Federation's official name during your tenure?
Jewish Federation of Greater Dallas.
Okay.
I always thought it should have a tag. It's too institutional sounding. It should say something like Jewish Federation of Greater Dallas, the Center for Jewish Philanthropy, because people just think of a building that's always asking for money. It's not philanthropic sounding.
Thank you. And what years did you serve?
2007 to 2009.
Okay. And your title
Was chair,
was chair. Okay.
board chair.
You have already mentioned some various leaders that you did work with. Is there anyone else that comes to mind?
Oh, there's a lot of them. Several people chaired different components. Harold Gernsbacher did overseas. David Veeder at that time, before he became my chair-elect, was P&A. Yannette Hogue was always busy doing something. Let me think. Peggy Tobolowsky was getting started on a demographic survey to see if we could do it or not, and how much it would cost, and what we wanted to do, and like a task force. Janie Schultz was busy getting JED up and running, trying to figure out a business plan for that. That's Jewish Education Department. Howard Schultz and Stan Rabin were joint distribution, always involved in that. There were so many people that were committed and loved doing what they do. My board was reduced to 25 people from 105. It was it was huge originally, but they had all the rabbis on that at that time. So then they started with a rabbinical presentation of the chair of the Rabbinical Society.
That's interesting you say that, because the next question really was what you felt the relationship was between the Federation and the synagogues and temples.
You know, I don't remember really funding synagogues and temples. They weren't in our agenda. They were basically we had our constituency agencies. We had the J, we had Golden Acres, we had Jewish Family Service. You had Overseas, Jaffe, but you didn't really have a synagogue that I can remember request for P&A.
What's Jaffe stand for?
Jewish Agency for Israel.
Oh, okay.
It actually used to get a little bit more money than the joint distribution, I think.
How do you feel the Jewish community interacted with Dallas Secular and other religious communities
So we had
here?
JC, Political Action, all right, JCPA. It was, they were getting started. You didn't always understand what they were doing, but it was good. I mean, Andrea Weinstein was head of national JCPA. So it was going. I was never really involved in it, but it's a necessary. You have to have that, especially with anti-Semitism today. If you're not connecting with the other people, then you're assumed you're making your own ghetto, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you. Now, were there any other coalitions with other organizations that you all got more involved with outside the Jewish community too, like with government offices?
Well,
anything?
some people went down to legislate different things, but it was never anything that I did.
Okay.
That was JCRC. Excuse me, it wasn't JCPA. It was JCRC
Okay.
who did that, Jewish Community Relations.
Okay. At the time during your tenure, do you remember any significant, like local, national, international events that were happening that affected what was going on with us here in our community?
No, not really, except that in our community, what was affecting me as a chair was changing from a Golden Acres, which was on the other side of town, which at the time had very few people who were Jewish going over there, because it just wasn't where people wanted to place their seniors and their loved ones. So we had a real issue. And so we decided to sell. And we were able to sell and able to purchase what was called the Veranda, which was right around the corner here from JCC. And it was called Legacy at Preston Hollow. And at the time, it had maybe 20 Jewish people in it, not much. So how are we going to make it Jewish? Because the Federation refused to recognize Willow Bend as a home for Jewish aged people. At the time were, it was built and it was completed 2008. They started moving in. So it was completed and people were buying their apartments, because in 2008 you had a crunch with the real estate crunch. So what started out to be a rental community could not be built as a rental community. They needed to have the revenue for the to build it, to finish it. So people considered it elitist. So we had a problem there, and I'll never forget, I met with the Rabbinical Association, and they were saying that they thought it really needed to be a kosher facility. And Golden Acres was kosher style, not kosher. Like they were recommending that we do. And I've always held to this very minute that at the age of 84, I'm not going to ask anybody or tell anybody how to eat and what to eat. So we are who we are. We are a community. We built for a community. We have kosher facilities for a community. We have the VOD approving everything. We have someone staffed in the kitchen for this. So, yeah. We had our issues running back and forth with the VOD, and as it turned out, Federation would only fund what was necessary for a veranda and not for Willow Bend. And now they fund basically our Medicaid beds, which not fully fund, but fund. So we're fortunate that they do that, but that was an issue for a while. It all worked out.
Yeah. What changes do you feel the Dallas community experienced during your tenure? What was going on?
First of all, they were trying to connect to the next generation. That was something that I could help with, possibly. So we formed a group called The Pillars. And leading that and setting up their own mission statement and what they wanted to accomplish were Stephanie and Gary Eisenstadt and Julie and Randy Lieberman. And they did a great job. This was nothing that was fundraising, no money required. It was just bringing together 35 to 50-year-olds in a setting that they wanted to socialize, connect, enjoy an evening. We'd have a good speaker like a skinhead. Do it in people's homes. We had Bobby Haas, we had different things, and it worked. People do not want to be called and only asked to give money. They want to feel included, they want to feel connected, and I've always felt that, yes, we are a fundraising entity, but if you don't build community, you're not going to be able to get the money, the fundraising that you need. So I think you have to start with understanding that, and I have told other people that when you become president or chair of an organization, everybody sets out to conquer the world. You want to be sure everything is done perfect, and you want to be innovative, and you want to be successful. And I've told them, I said, just concentrate on 2 things that you can do well, and then you can move on. It's not easy. So it works, and missions were going good. We had a great time in going to missions. They were very involved. We had a women's mission that we chaired, Barbara Stein and I, for several years. And we went to places like L.A., we went to New Orleans, we went to Charleston, we went to Chicago, we went to Toronto. It was really building a community. People don't understand you have to build a community. You can't expect them to come just because you want to give a speaker. They won't do it. So, you have to build in some excitement and energy into whatever you're doing. And I think that they've had a hard time the past several years. But it's cyclical, and so they're going to have to rebuild. And so how do you rebuild that? You find the holes and try to plug them.
Did you feel that Dallas was a cohesive community or divisive during that time?
In those days, I felt it was very cohesive. I mean, we were all in it together to win. It was fun. It was exciting. We bounced through those doors at Federation like nobody's business, and there was never security. You just walked in, you bounced into Debbie Estrin's office, who was head of development. Debbie, what are we doing today? We sat down and schmoozed a little bit. Nancy Emmerman, Gary Weinstein. Everybody was just bouncing, and it was fun. And you were bouncing, but not only were you bouncing from room to room, you were getting ideas. You were generating energy with staff also. So it was a great place to be working at, and a great place to be part of, I felt. Foundation and Federation kind of got sideways, but I think that that's building back now with the new head, Megan. I think she's going to be a great asset to our community.
Thank you. In relation to your time at Federation, you have
Mhm.
mentioned quite a few things. Is there anything that you're most proud of, or a few things that you're most proud of that really stands out?
Well, one of the things, Stuart Prescott was head of Create a Jewish Legacy that the foundation had set out to do. This was in 2007, 8, forget. And I'm very proud that this was a way to raise funds, because if you don't have a foundation that has some money, it's difficult. It's difficult for any organization. So what this does, Create a Jewish Legacy, is they're asking people to make a bequest, endow some money, whatever, give an insurance policy, however you want to give money to the community, so that once we're gone, our money is perpetual. It just continues. So what Stevie and I did, you notice I call him Stevie? I met him when I was 14, he was 16, and we were BBYO. So I've been married 62 and a half years. Anyway, so they started this, and so I sat down one day, I was invited. Don't ever go to lunch. Don't ever go to breakfast. Breakfast is the worst, because you get caught. So anyway, Donnie Schaefer was working with Stuart. And so he says, Carol, we need to get this off the ground. So I went to Steve, and we initially were the first ones to make a gift to Create a Jewish Legacy. And we did a $15 million bequest. So what I've done is I have allotted a certain percentage, when we're gone, of the interest that you get off of that money. And that's what will go to different organizations. Certain percentages go to Shul, to Jay, to this one, that one, Hillel, whatever. But if people don't do that, and a bequest is easy. People don't understand. You can change it. If your life changes, you don't have to feel guilty that your family is obligated for something you did 15 years ago. So I think that was one thing. The other one was, well, I wasn't chair, but we did the JCC, and I'm being part of Legacy. The J is great, because when we did that, the J was, I said, if it doesn't include everybody, we're not doing it. I'm not in one pew. So that's why we did from the very youngest to the very oldest. So I feel good about what we've done. And not all of it was done during that period of time, but quite a bit was accomplished. You know, it's, if we don't do it, who's going to do it? So you've heard that 1,000 times. I personally am a Dallas giver. I don't really want to necessarily spend all my funds going someplace out of our city, because if you don't keep this place built, it's not going to be good for our families. So I'm a firm believer in giving back to the city, Jewish city.
I was going to ask you, since you've concluded being chair, other things that you've done, but you definitely have been doing so many things.
Well, I was chair of Legacy Senior Communities, and that was another breakfast meeting. And so I did that for 3 years. We were very lucky at the time to have Michael Ellentuck at the helm. He saved Golden Acres. Golden Acres at one time could not pay the staff. And so it was serious. Anyway, so I met with these guys for breakfast, and they asked me this. I said, are you kidding me? I said, you know that I'm not good at certain things. So they said, we know. So I said, well, I'm not going to have any more night meetings. So they meet at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so you don't have to worry about that. So, okay, because I had been involved in Golden Acres for a long time. So, all right, so I did that, and then worked on everything that happened over in Midtown Park. And just recently, Steve and I have given some money to name the campus. So it'll be called the Carol and Steve Aaron Family Campus. So I've been busy. I was chair of Midtown Park for several years, and it's good. I mean, I'm getting older, but if I didn't have that to do, I don't know what I would do. Really, I never played cards and I never played tennis. I had too many other things to do with my kids.
Thank you. Is there
Uh-huh.
anything else that would like to share with us? I know I've asked you these questions, but there might be something we didn't cover.
Let me think. I just want to share that community is so important, and people don't understand what it does for you. And a lot of people say, "Well, I was born here and I was born there," and I don't. I said, "But let me tell you something. If you're living here in this city, and your children or grandchildren are going to a Jewish day school, or going to a synagogue, or you're going to the JCC, or you have a loved one that's at Legacy, or you have someone who needs help from JFS, you're establishing roots here. So you've got some roots. It might not be the original root, the tree trunk, but you got some branches. And I think people need to recognize that and support it."
Carol, would you tell us a little bit about growing up here in Dallas and about your family?
Okay. I grew up actually in Lakewood, and there were very few Jewish families. You can put them on one hand, the Jewish families that lived in Lakewood. And I lived there from the age of 5 to 14. And every Sunday or Saturday, I was roller skating at the First Baptist Church, or I was bringing my Jewish friends, my non-Jewish friends, to South Dallas. I was in the last confirmation class at Shearith Israel in South Dallas. Every Sunday, we went to South Dallas, or my dad would pick us up, and we would go over to my grandparents' house. They lived on Wendelken. When you take a tour of South Dallas, you will go down these streets, and so they all had chickens in their backyard. A lot of people did. My grandmother did, my grandmother and grandfather. And I always wondered if that chicken I was eating was the one I saw the week before. But we made a trip around to my aunts, my uncles. They all lived in South Dallas, so we went to visit everybody. And interesting, my great-grandfather, his name was Abraham Rosenthal, was the second cantor at Shearith Israel in 1900. Well, he was Orthodox, and he had a large family. And they needed a kosher butcher in Fort Worth, or anywhere for this whole area, but you had to be in Fort Worth because that's where the stockyards were. So he moved all of his family, except my grandfather, who was one of the oldest, stayed here. And the rest of them were in Fort Worth, and he became a kosher butcher. And ever since then, our whole Rosenthal was my maiden name. All the family has been some form of the meat business. And my father was a pork processor. Bacon, ham, sausage, hot dogs, mohawk meat. So then they decided I need to be amongst my Jewish friends. So they moved. We moved over to Royalshire, and in 1956, and I started Hillcrest High School. And I had gone from, the show Grease. That's what I had in Lakewood. So I had the greasy ducktails, everybody, the motorcycle jackets, and the chains hanging down from the pants, and the girls were wearing, me included, we were wearing straight skirts and sweater sets. And I got over here to this part of town, and they were in poodle skirts and crinolines, and the boys were in were in loafers, penny loafers, and it was just a different world. No ducktails. It was like all I did was cross the highway and entered into this other world. And then I entered into BBG, and I was Zesmer president. I was Sweetheart of Kaplan AZA. I just went to the BBG convention just for a lunch with some people that were alumni. And 2010, I forget when it was, 12, I was awarded the Anita Perlman Award for Outstanding Alumni for BBG. listen, if you started in BBG here in Dallas, there's no reason why you shouldn't be supporting it. It gave you a whole life. It showed you the way to be with people, to be a team member, to develop friends, to have bonds, and those bonds are still there for eternity. So we're blessed to have it. People don't realize what they have until they lose it. So that was my beginnings, and so then Steve and I got married. I was only 19, a month after I turned 19, I got married. And he was 21. He had just graduated Texas, and I finished. I was only a freshman and never went back. And had 5 children. I was 28 with the 5th one. But that was good. It worked well for me. It worked. It was good times. And now we have one that's married, our grandson who's married, and he's expecting his 2nd child. I have another granddaughter getting married, and in fact, she turned 35 yesterday. So it's been lucky. It's been fortunate. Steve has worked hard to provide for his family and for our community, and I don't think it could be any better. So that was the beginning and the end.
Well, Carol, thank you
Mhm.
so
You're
much
welcome.
for sharing this with us, and we appreciate everything that you've done for the community.
It was good for me. I didn't just do it for you. I did it for myself too, because it filled a void from 5 children to I went to a whole community. That's not bad.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.